What if the people you trusted most were hiding the truth right in front of you? This channel is where family lies unravel, where canceled holidays reveal calculated betrayals, and where inheritance turns love into a transaction. Here, you'll hear true stories of loyalty tested, bloodlines divided, and relationships shattered by greed and silence. These are stories where sisters rewrite history, families manipulate from the shadows, and husbands choose comfort over truth until the secrets can't stay buried anymore. Every story pulls you deep into raw emotions, quiet revenge, and the moment patience finally shifts the power. If you've ever felt overlooked, betrayed, or silenced by the ones who should have stood beside you, you're in the right place. These aren't loud revenge tales. They're slow, real, and devastatingly honest. Stay, because once the truth surfaces, nothing ever goes back to the way it was. Christmas had never been optional in this family. No matter the arguments, the distance, or the grudges that lingered all year, that one day always pulled everyone back together. So when the message arrived saying Christmas was canceled, it felt wrong immediately. The excuse was thin. Grandma was tired, wanted a quiet holiday, didn't want visitors. Everyone accepted it too quickly. No questions, no concern, just agreement. That silence was the first betrayal. Calls went unanswered after that. Messages were acknowledged with short replies, almost rehearsed. Something had shifted, and it wasn't just the holiday. A few days later, while scrolling absent-mindedly, photos surfaced online. A full Christmas gathering. The tree, the table, the smiles, everyone was there. The holiday hadn't been canceled. It had been carefully edited. Confusion turned into hurt, then into something heavier. Loyalty was being tested, and the outcome was already decided. When the truth finally came out, it was wrapped in polite explanations and fake sympathy. Grandma had changed her will. Everything had gone to my sister. The reason given was simple. She was the only one who showed up, the only one who cared, the only one who deserved it. What no one expected was how deeply the lie ran. Grandma hadn't asked for space. She'd been told no one was coming, told people were busy, told not to worry. Isolation had been used like a tool, reshaping reality one quiet day at a time, until dependence looked like devotion. The betrayal from family cut deep, but it was the silence beside me that hurt the most. Questions were brushed off, doubts were dismissed, the sudden defensiveness, the way conversations ended too quickly. It all made sense later. Money had already changed hands. Not inheritance money, but a promise tied to it, a secret deal, a loan disguised as support, a husband who knew enough to stay quiet and chose comfort over truth. The lie about Christmas wasn't just about a holiday. It was about control, about rewriting history while trusting that no one would look too closely. They underestimated patience. When the truth finally surfaced, it didn't come with shouting or tears. It arrived calmly, backed by proof, and left no room for denial. Some lies collapsed loudly. This one fell apart in silence. And once it did, nothing could ever be the same again. Money changed the family faster than any argument ever could. Before the inheritance was mentioned, love felt effortless. Birthdays remembered, calls returned, concern offered without conditions. The moment Grandma's assets became a topic of conversation, everything shifted. Kindness started coming with expectations, and attention became something that had to be earned. It started subtly. My sister suddenly became the favorite, praised for sacrifices no one had noticed before. Stories were exaggerated, retold until they sounded heroic. Meanwhile, distance grew toward anyone who questioned the narrative. Family dinners turned tense, full of forced smiles and careful words, as if one wrong sentence could cost something valuable. What hurt most wasn't the favoritism, it was how easily everyone justified it. She needs it more. She's more responsible. She's closer to Grandma. Bloodlines were suddenly measured by usefulness, not love. When the will was changed, no one acted surprised. They acted relieved. Behind closed doors, manipulation was thriving. Grandma's fears were fed carefully, one suggestion at a time. Doubts were planted about loyalty, about who could be trusted. The less contact there was with the rest of the family, the easier it became to control the story. And control meant money. The betrayal deepened when the truth about my husband surfaced. Late nights that were blamed on work, sudden financial decisions explained away as temporary help. What looked like support was actually an investment. He had accepted money from my sister long before the inheritance was finalized, promising loyalty in exchange for security. Silence became his contribution. Every time consign was dismissed, every time questions were shut down, it was part of the deal. Love didn't disappear overnight. It was traded. The realization was suffocating. Family bonds weren't breaking because of misunderstanding. They were being sold. Loyalty had a price, and apparently it wasn't very high. The people who preached unity were the first to abandon it when money offered an easier path. Revenge didn't come from rage. It came from clarity. Records were uncovered. Conversations were remembered differently once the motive was clear. What had been hidden behind affection and obligation was exposed for what it really was: greed dressed up as care. When everything finally unraveled, excuses collapsed quickly. No one could explain why money had moved before Grandma ever passed, or why silence had been demanded in return. The inheritance that was supposed to secure the future instead revealed who had already sold theirs. In the end, blood didn't decide who mattered. Choices did. The betrayal that hurt the most didn't arrive loudly. It sat quietly beside me, nodded at the right moments, and pretended to be neutral when everything was falling apart. When the family story began to crack, the expectation was simple: stand with the truth. Instead, silence took its place, heavy and deliberate. At first, it looked like avoidance. Conversations about the canceled Christmas were redirected. Questions about the inheritance were met with tired sighs and warnings not to make things worse. The reassurance sounded loving on the surface, but something underneath felt off. The pauses were too long, the advice felt rehearsed, and the eye contact disappeared whenever my sister's name came up. The truth revealed itself slowly, piece by piece. A notification glimpsed on a phone screen, a bank alert that didn't match any shared clan, late nights that were explained away with vague excuses. Each detail alone meant nothing. Together, they told a story no one wanted uncovered. Money had passed hands quietly, not as a gift, but as an agreement. A loan framed as support given before the inheritance was finalized. The condition wasn't written, but it was understood: loyalty through silence, protection through denial. When questions arose, they were to be shut down. When doubts surfaced, they were to be dismissed. And when Christmas disappeared, nothing was to be said. The realization was devastating. While family lies were painful, this was intimate. It wasn't just trust that had been broken, it was partnership. The person who should have questioned the story had helped reinforce it. The person who should have spoken up had helped bury the truth deeper. What hurt most was recognizing the pattern. Every time concern had been brushed aside, it was intentional. Every argument avoided wasn't about peace, it was about protecting an investment. Love had been reduced to a role, and that role required obedience. The secret didn't survive scrutiny. Once the financial trail was followed, everything became clear. Dates didn't align. Transfers told a different story than words ever could. Silence, once mistaken for loyalty, was exposed as participation. There was no dramatic confrontation, no raised voices, just facts laid out carefully, calmly, with nowhere left to hide. Excuses fell apart quickly when evidence replaced emotion. The truth didn't need volume, it only needed daylight. In that moment, it became clear that betrayal doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes it sleeps beside you. Revenge didn't arrive in anger. It took shape quietly, built from patience and observation while everyone else assumed the story was finished. The family believed the inheritance had settled everything, that silence meant acceptance. That assumption became their greatest mistake. Every detail was noted carefully: dates, conversations, sudden changes in behavior. What once felt confusing now made sense when viewed through the lens of greed. Bank records were requested under harmless pretenses. Old messages were reread, this time without trust clouding judgment. Patterns emerged: money moving before decisions were finalized, promises made long before Grandma's voice was removed from the room. The hardest part was waiting. Acting too soon would have warned them. Staying calm required swallowing anger and disappointment, especially when my husband continued pretending nothing was wrong. The same person who once spoke about honesty now avoided eye contact. That silence confirmed everything. He wasn't afraid of conflict, he was afraid of being exposed. The right moment came naturally, a family gathering meant to celebrate closure. Laughter filled the room and confidence sat heavily on my sister's face. Everyone believed the power belonged to them now. That's when the truth works best, when no one expects it. There were no accusations, only documents placed gently on the table, financial transfers highlighted, messages time-stamped, medical notes that showed Grandma had been isolated under false pretenses. The room went quiet in a way no shouting could ever achieve. One by one, faces changed as understanding replaced denial. My husband spoke last. The explanation sounded weak, rushed, and unfamiliar, like someone reciting lines without believing them. The secret loan surfaced. The agreement for silence became undeniable. In trying to protect himself, he revealed how long he had chosen money over loyalty. The power shifted instantly. What was once control turned into panic. Lawyers were mentioned, accounts were frozen. The inheritance that had seemed untouchable was suddenly under scrutiny. No one looked at me the same way again, and that was the point. Walking away afterward felt lighter than expected, not because the pain disappeared, but because it finally belonged where it should. Revenge didn't destroy anyone, it simply removed the mask. Some victories don't need an audience. They only need the truth to arrive at the perfect time. If this story pulled you in, imagine what the next one will reveal. These truths only survive when they're shared, so don't forget to like the video. It helps more hidden stories reach the light. Subscribe to the channel for more real family dramas, quiet revenge, and betrayals that change everything. And before you go, comment below. What would you have done when the silence finally spoke? Your voice matters here. See you in the next story.